Hello, fans of ghost stories. I am back finally again. It's been a while. It's been actually a couple of months since I've done one of these. I really do want to get back into the trend of doing one of these positively paranormal videos every 2 weeks, and that starts today. This video is going to be a little bit different, where I don't think I'm really going to get into telling ghost stories, but I'm going to talk about some interesting facts, which I know that's what everybody loves, is facts. I am going to be talking about haunted Culver City, which is such a fun place. I love Culver City. There's so much history, so many hauntings, and the more I'm digging into it, the more I'm learning. And I definitely always want to hear from you. If you have any ghost stories of your own, have you ever experienced anything in Culver City? Do you have a lesser known haunted location in Culver City? We're also really diving into the crime and dark history of Culver City, because not every location is haunted, but there are some really bizarre twists and turns when you get into a city's dark history. And so I'm trying to to mine all of that information as much as I can. And I always start by asking the audience, because this is really what this is about, is having conversations with each other. Before we get into that, as always, we're going to look at what I've been up to, some announcements. There's actually a lot of announcements today. If you want to just jump to Culver City, I have the chapter markers. That's what they're there for. You know, this is called Positively Paranormal. We try to do something positive, or try to bring a positive slant into the world of the paranormal. And I got off track last week, or last episode, because I was talking about the eclipse. And I talked about, I said I'll get back to why this is paranormal, how I'm going to fit this in. And then I just got off the rails talking about how amazing it was being in the path of totality. But the point I was going to make, that I forgot to make, was the sense of wonder that's in the world when you witness something like that. That's obviously not paranormal. We understand why eclipses happen, but it's that kind of a thing that it's a rare occurrence. It's a natural occurrence. It's something that happens, but not everybody experiences it. But the people who do experience it, it's profound. It sticks with them. It's amazing. It's a memory they'll never forget, much like seeing something paranormal. It's a reminder that these things that happen in the world, sometimes it's hard to prove, because unless you were there and saw it for yourself, people might not believe you. Oh, you remember the other day where when the sun just disappeared and we had this crazy disc with flames shooting out of the sides for like a good 4 minutes? If somebody was in a different state, they'd say, that didn't happen. What are you talking about? You're crazy. But the reality is, it did happen. It did happen for those people that were in the right path, in that right moment, in the right time. And, you know, witnessing something paranormal is not something that's predictable. Obviously, astronomical things like this are predictable now. They weren't not that long ago. I mean, actually, astronomers have been looking up in the sky for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that's been predictable for a long time. But the fact of the point is that magical things happen that are explainable, and magical things happen in this world that are not yet explainable. And they might be natural, and they might be part of biology and science in the future. But for right now, they are just a mystery. And that's what's exciting, is that there is the unknown still in the world. The unknown that if you're lucky, you might be able to witness for yourself. And again, I'm saying magical because I'm describing things that are amazing, not because it's literally magic. So just don't be too literal when I say magical. But yeah, anybody that witnessed totality, that was magical for that moment. Before I jump into talking about Culver City, and yes, I will keep teasing this, I wanted to mention that I'm coming back to Los Angeles soon in June. And I want to know from you what you want me to cover while I'm out there. If there's any places you want me to go, any ghost stories you want me to tell on site. It's so wild. It's going to be 6 months since I've been in LA, which for me is a very long time. Last time I was there was in December, and I shot all of these videos, these YouTube shorts at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. I had an afternoon free, and I popped in there and I shot all these in one day, as you see, because I've got the same shirt on. But it was really neat to do, and I got to explore some parts of the very haunted and the very famously haunted Hollywood Forever Cemetery. I got to explore some places that I don't usually see, and I got to see some things for the first time. A place I've been dozens and dozens of times. I was exploring new areas, and that was a lot of fun. And I just do have to point out that YouTube very stubbornly makes it so you cannot create your own thumbnail on a YouTube short, because they say, well, nobody's ever going to see it. It just kind of pops up on the scroll No, look, if you go to my page and click on shorts, this is what you see. It's the thumbnails, including this absolute winner right here. Who wouldn't want to have that be the thumbnail for something? So YouTube, figure it out. So I'm heading back to do some video work, some interviews. I love interviewing filmmakers. I love interviewing creative people. Doing this with the International Screenwriters Association. And something else I'm doing recently with the ISA is trailer reactions, along with my good friend Max, who is my co-host on the Fantastic Story Society. And it's not specific to horror movies or supernatural movies, but we just tend to stumble into that realm a lot. And the last couple we did have been Sasquatch Sunset and I Saw the TV Glow. Sasquatch Sunset is already out of theaters. It'll be probably streaming before you know it. That was a fun one to do. And also I Saw the TV Glow has a good paranormal Twilight Zone-y vibe to it. So I'm going to leave links in case anybody wants to check any of this stuff out. I'm so excited. The next one we've already recorded, it's not out yet, is the sequel. It's Maxine, part of the X and Pearl trilogy. And it ends up in Los Angeles during the time of the Night Stalker. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with this movie. I'm not a big slasher fan, but this one looks very interesting. I want to mention this now in case I don't do another one of these episodes in time, but Mary Doodles, who was the wonderful illustrator for the book, Voices from the Chicago Grave, as she says, it was her pre-Mary Doodles era. She is about to celebrate 13 years making videos on YouTube. And as you see, she has picked up hundreds of thousands of subscribers, almost 400,000 subscribers right here. And she's on multiple platforms, of course. So huge congratulations to Mary, who has done so much with art in her life, letting art be the driving force of her life. She's won a Webby Award for being an art director on Epic Rap Battles of History. And I don't even know everything else that she's done. She did amazing artwork for my book. I'm forever grateful for her. And you should check out her channel. Maybe you can help her get to 400,000 subscribers, as if I have 11,000 people watching this. But she does these live videos, live streaming art sessions on Mondays. A lot of fun. Definitely check her out. As a thanks to me, pass it along. She has been mentioning Voices from the Chicago Grave a little bit in recent videos. So I'm forever grateful for her for everything that she has done and that she continues to put this great stuff and this positivity and this fun into the world. That's what we're all supposed to be doing here is creating and having fun and sharing joy. And she does it to a T. Something very off the rails, off the wall for me to be talking about here. Yakov Smirnoff. I got to interview him recently, and we made it an episode of the Fantastic Story Society. Legendary comic from the 80s, actually came over to America from Odessa in the late 70s and took no time to jump up on stage and start his American comedy career. Went on to make movies with Richard Pryor and Robin Williams and Tom Hanks even. It was so interesting and fun talking to him. And he's become something of almost a TED Talk kind of a presentation is what he does, where he talks about why we need laughter, basically how the human mind works in a lot of ways. It ended up being a very interesting show. It's still very comedic, as you would assume, the shows he does. But we always do a comedy episode once per year on the Fantastic Story Society. And thanks to my friend Michael Alexander, we were able to interview Yakov Smirnoff in person up at the Crystal Grand. And I'm sorry that these announcements are going on so long, but that's my fault for taking too long in between these episodes. But I'm working with Michael Alexander to do a sports card channel. So if anybody's into that kind of stuff, I'll leave a link as well. And we are even doing a live in-person show, sports card show at the Crystal Grand Theater in the Wisconsin Dells in early June. So if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're that big of a nerd with us, we would love to hang out and see you up there. So our comment of the week, I like for it to be more constructive. Somebody left a nasty comment on What's Your Ghost Story, which was a reminder because for the longest time I've been wanting to update this article and I just have not prioritized it. There is a lot of wrong information and these articles. I'm going to read it as it's written. So this is an article about Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. Really amazing cemetery, huge, sprawling cemetery. I'd love to go back. I've really only explored it once. It was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I can't even remember. Yeah, New Year's Day, 2013. And at this time, my research partner wrote this article. And very quickly, I got contacted by somebody who used to be an employee of Forest Lawn. And they said, well, you got some things wrong. Let me steer you in the right direction. And to be honest with you, there was only one inaccurate thing in this article. And it was about like what is allowed or not allowed when it comes to taking photos. You are allowed to take pictures there. You just can't set up tripods. That's kind of a standard thing in a lot of cities in general. If you don't have a permit, you can't put equipment on the ground, but you can take as many photos as you want. The rest of this article, I do have to defend it to some degree because it's opinion. This is what my partner found when we were there looking around, getting a bit frustrated because it was tough to find which end is up because it's such a huge space. Also, a lot of places were restricted. You couldn't go down certain areas, which was unfortunate. It's something that we've never experienced. I'd never really experienced at a cemetery before, having whole sections just completely roped off, not because there was something going on, just because you just cannot access a whole area unless you are a family member that has a key to access big parts of these communal mausoleums. And it's because, Michael Jackson is buried there. Liz Taylor is buried down there. Famous people. But it's not like those famous people are just hanging out down there and want their privacy. At the same time, you have to respect wishes. I don't know if that was just the cemetery or if that's what these people's wishes were. So as I mentioned, somebody reached out to me who used to work for Forest Lawn, and they gave me a lot of information. So I've updated this article with that new information. I've kind of left the original article as it stood. I've made a lot of grammatical, because there were definitely typos and stuff like that in here that, hey, listen, at the end of the day, even though somebody else wrote it, it's my website. I should have checked it. And I'm always completely above board when it comes to admitting mistakes. And sometimes it's because a mistake comes up. Maybe I've gotten bad information from somewhere else, or maybe I misinterpreted something. And if somebody corrects me, I am happy for that. I love to be corrected because I want to be right. I want to have good information out there. So while this person, and by the way, I'm going to rag on them for a little bit just because they're anonymous, so it's not personal at all. There's a lot of wrong information and these articles. I'm thinking they mean in this article. If there's an inaccuracy, what? That's not helpful just to snipe from the sidelines. Instead, though, I will give a huge thanks to Bob Marlowe, who is the person that wrote to me and gave a lot more information. And again, his information is now in here, attributed to him. Like I said, there's only one factual mistake. Otherwise, there was a lot of typos, things like that. But Bob Saw is his website, and he is a photographer. And so here's his photography website, including photo at Hollywood Forever Cemetery right there. Giving a shout out to him. By the way, Clifton's, oh my gosh, one of the coolest places in all of LA, Clifton's. Cantors, he's got a lot of fun stuff. So check out his website too. So here we are in downtown Culver City. Actually, I'll make it jump out a bit more because there is the Culver Hotel right there. That is maybe the most iconic landmark of Culver City. And I've been doing a lot of research, as I mentioned. And I've also already done an episode of this show where I talk about the ghost stories of Culver Studios. So I'm not going to do that here. If you want to check that out, if you didn't see it before, I'll leave a link to it. But I will actually get into it a little bit towards the end. I do just want to show always such a beautiful, beautiful place. So Culver City exists because of a man named Harry Culver. However, I really wish the town was named after Thomas Ince. Harry Culver, tremendous businessman for sure. Maybe not the most ethical. And certainly today he would have a tough time because he set up Culver City as a sundown town, meaning if you were a minority by sundown, get out. Yeah. So it's a bummer that everything is named after Harry Culver. Again, he was a pioneer in so many ways as far as establishing this area. But yeah, maybe not the greatest guy, not a guy I would want to hang out with. Thomas Ince, on the other hand, amazing, very interesting, cool human being. And again, this is kind of what I'm going to get into as far as sharing some interesting facts. Before I do that, I want to just spin this around, see the other side. But just over here is here it is. Here is a beautiful old building, the Hull building, very nice restaurant called Akasha. And you see the A on top of the awning right there. This building was started by Charles Hull. He was a doctor. This building was a hospital. So it's no wonder it's got some ghost stories associated with it. But yeah, it was a hospital. And it is an actively haunted location. I talked to somebody in there back when I was helping pick it. I was protesting outside of Culver Studios with some friends with the ISA. And I asked somebody behind the bar saying, I asked, is this place haunted? I've heard that there are some ghost stories. And they said, well, unfortunately, I'm not the right person to ask because I've only been here 2 days. But I can say that as part of my orientation day, they told me that the place was haunted and that if I was in a room alone, I'm actually not going to be in the room alone. There's somebody else that will be hanging out with me, and you'll hear objects moving on their own. Someone, quite possibly Charles Hall, is still hanging out in this area. We've been doing a lot of learning and research on this area, and the stories about the Hall building are getting better and better and more interesting. And this really cool building back here is a hotel, is a very hip hotel right now. Has a link to the golden age of Hollywood. Not sure yet if it's haunted. I've heard whispers that it might be. So I'm still digging into this one. Don't have it all figured out yet, but that's part of the puzzle, part of the excitement here. Jamesons here, as you see, the old sign is still on when this photo was taken. It was Rush Street, one of my favorite places to hang out. Got a lot of airtime in Silicon Valley and other TV shows. Now it's Jameson's Irish Pub. Don't know. I've never heard any ghost stories about it, but I hope it's haunted. Culver Hotel, very haunted. Charles Hall had his offices here on the second floor. He is still seen walking around the Culver Hotel. This place just has so much history. The different famous people who owned it through the years, too, is just wild how many different people had the keys to this building over the years. Again, a lot of this I've already talked about in a previous episode, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. But in doing some of the research, I want to talk a little bit about some of the coolest and most interesting facts I've learned. And yes, this is coming out of my book a little bit. If you don't know, I'm writing a book. It's I don't know when it's going to be ready, but I've got so many great stories and so many great locations I visited through my 25 years of being a ghost storyteller. And it's really fun to revisit some of those places I thought I've known inside out, and now get more information as I'm writing a book has been a lot of fun. And part of that has been learning a lot more about Thomas Ince. The era was amazing, and I couldn't imagine working in the earliest days of film. He starts working for Bison Studios, making silent films in the Echo Park area. Now, he is overseeing a lot of production, but he's not the department head. He's not the studio head, but he sees all of this land out off the Pacific Coast Highway. Not, of course, it wasn't the Pacific Coast Highway yet, but out in that area. So all the way to as west as you could be and a little bit north of present day Santa Monica. And he's urging the studio to buy land out there. Cheap land, beautiful land. We can do a lot of shooting out there, and it's not settled yet, so it's just wide open. He gets them to buy 460 acres of land at the intersection of Sunset Boulevard and what would later become the Pacific Coast Highway. And he then, continues working for them, making movies out there. And in the space of a year, he's made enough movies and saved enough money that he buys that land for himself, buys it from his employer, and then buys another 18,000 acres of land. And that whole area, huge area, is known as Inceville, named after himself, which that's kind of what I wish Culver City is named. I wish that was Inceville. It was so groundbreaking. And at that time period, movies were being made in New York and Chicago, in these very busy, industrialized and established cities. But here he's got 18,000 acres of just wide open land, and he can do something that's never been done before. He can have every department on site. He's basically building the first ever backlot. And he becomes what many people think of as the Henry Ford of film, where he can have this assembly line style of production. You have people developing, people shooting, people editing, and it's all happening on site. There are on site, literally people are living there, but every department, the wardrobe, the props, the set builders, they're all doing it on site because they have all of this land. They're able to do it right there, which just has not been done before, and is the model of how much is done today. All of these different jobs, because you can compartmentalize what everybody's doing so much. All of these jobs that we still have today, these roles within filmmaking, were created, were invented on site. You don't have one person doing all of these different things. You do part of the job and then hand it off to the next person to do the next part of the job. And also you have all of these sets built that are just going to stand there permanently, and different productions can come in and shoot on this pre-built set. And again, these are the types of things you see commonly in backlots where you have city streets from a certain era, from a certain region that are there all the time, and people keep shooting on that same spot. It happens all the time now, but it didn't happen before. But it starts with Inceville. And I want to give some historical context. What time period we're looking at? At this point, we're talking about 1912 now. He makes a movie about the Battle of Little Bighorn titled Custer's Last Fight. This movie features extras and actors who were actually soldiers in the actual battle. The battle itself took place in 1876, so the same people aren't the same age, but still, people that were really on site could be there to recreate the moment and to bring a heck of a lot of authenticity to it. Thomas Ince is making movies there for several years, and then Harry Culver is the one who then woos him to come to bring his production south to present day Culver City, create Culver Studios. And the big draw, even though Thomas had so much established already, like you'd think, why would you ever leave that? The reason was weather. Yes, even in California, there's the morning marine layer that can sometimes just blanket a whole area. And if you're trying to shoot as if you were out in the desert, and he made a lot of Westerns and he loved making Westerns. So you can't really do that even in black and white with the fog between the camera and the actors. So Harry Culver showed him all of this data that showed he would have 12 more shooting days per year if he shot in Culver City rather than up the coast. And that was enough for Harry Culver to come down and create Culver Studios. There's so much more. I've covered it in a different video, but Thomas Ince sadly was a murder victim. There's a lot of conflicting reports because the likely murderer was William Randolph Hearst, who of course controlled so many newspapers. He was a very powerful person, likely killed Thomas Ince accidentally and then covered it up. We'll circle back to that when it comes time to make our thumbnail. There's one other fact I wanted to share because, okay, so now we know where Inceville was. I was wondering, what does it look like today? What's there now? So we jump out of Culver City and head to the coast. So going just off the PCH up Sunset Boulevard, we have a self-realization yogi temple. I want to use the right terminology here, and I don't know exactly the right one, but here we see a shrine. This is a temple that was founded by Paramhansa Yogananda, who was a very, very important and influential yogi from India. He comes over to America and starts spreading a lot of new information and ideas about yoga, about meditation, about spirituality, and non-traditional as far as what America would have considered traditional at the time senses. He ends up becoming very, very important. And again, we are talking about earlier 1900s, actually 1920 is when he first had a vision that he was going to be going to America to teach. And by the middle of 1920, he actually does come over and he establishes what we see before us. Very groundbreaking when you consider the time period, 1920. By the early 1950s, he starts to have premonitions that he is going to die soon. It is 1952. He, at this point, has done as much work as he possibly could to give guidance towards the leadership, for the leadership of his organization and of the center here. And he appoints the future leaders, all of these things, because he knows that he is soon going to die. On March 7th, 1952, he attends a dinner for the visiting Indian ambassador to the U.S. At the conclusion of this banquet, Yogananda spoke of India and America, their contributions to world peace and human progress, and their future cooperation, expressing hope for a united world that would combine the best qualities of efficient America and spiritual India. And after reciting a poem, he goes back to his chair, puts his head down on his table, and has died. His followers didn't say he died. They just said his consciousness left his body. The idea that the physical death is not the end of life. His consciousness has just moved to the next realm. Where did that happen? That incredible, amazing moment that to this day, his followers believe is sacred ground. Let's go there. Yes, the label gave it away before we got there. The Biltmore Hotel, which is one of my favorite places in LA. insanely haunted. Just so many different ghost stories. And the site where they shot much of Ghostbusters, some of the most iconic scenes in Ghostbusters, the Biltmore Hotel, with history and legends ranging from the Black Dahlia to Al Capone to presidential candidates. It's just amazing how much has happened here. And I think because so much has happened here, this story gets overlooked a lot, which is crazy because it's a great story and it's an amazing story. It creates even more specialness for the Biltmore Hotel, knowing that there are all of these followers of this yogi who believe to this day that the Biltmore is considered hallowed ground. Literally, the site where he died is a sacred site. And I've done plenty of videos already about the Biltmore Hotel. But yeah, there's one that slips through the cracks somehow. And I love to be able to share these wild stories. So again, how did we get here? We got here talking about Thomas Ince, who started Inceville, did all these amazing things. And then after he left in the early 1900s, by 1920, Paramhansa Yogananda was establishing this self-improvement center here. And then he calls his own death. He calls his own shot as a premonition of death and dies at the Biltmore Hotel. So we have Thomas Ince connected to the Biltmore through this yogi. Pretty amazing and bizarrely coincidental story. Okay, so finally we end with creating some AI image for our thumbnail. And I'm going to go back to the story where William Randolph Hearst kills Thomas Ince. And this happens on William Randolph Hearst's boat, the Oneida. This was an old-fashioned cruiser type of a ship, not a sailboat, not a yacht. But, we are, again, talking about the early 1900s. AI, I'm using Copilot, which is Bing. They have a lot of restrictions. So you can't do anything violent. I'm not trying to do anything violent. So there won't be a gun involved or anything like that. But let's see. I've got a black and white image of a man in a bowler hat being followed by an evil-looking man while the two are on a boat. I don't know. That's a lot of description there. I was tempted to make it a like a pen and ink kind of a drawing. Oh man, this is good. Okay, this is better than I was expecting it to turn out. They're both in bowler hats. That's not necessary, but at least, oh my gosh, that's Phantom of the Opera-esque. It's Lon Chaney. And that boat back there, maybe it's a bit of a ship. Obviously, that smokestack is huge, but it's looking good. I didn't even talk about the time period, but does this bug you? I'm not touching you. Does this bug you? And he looks so sad, the Thomas Ince character. Not at all worried about the people looking correct. Boy, they really set this in London. And on a rowboat here, looks like. Although, look at the wake. That guy's rowing fast. Boy, he's even holding some sort of weapon there, which I did not call for. I mean, this is almost like a political cartoon depicting William Randolph Hearst. I like it. It's eye-catching. These two are both so good. All right, so I do have to call this a win. I thought I was going to have to do a few iterations of this to find something that worked, but I think I got two good options, and I'm just going to have to figure out how to make it work for the thumbnail. Again, thank you for the patience. It's been a little while. I have so many more things I want to share. I'm going to be doing a book writing update very soon. There's another, I'm running into some issues with YouTube on telling dark or scary stories. We're going to have a whole video about that because that's an issue. That's not going to be part of Positively Paranormal. But it's something that needs to be talked about. And I know a lot of YouTubers are having issues right now with not being able to do very basic things. The reason, although I'm celebrating AI in that previous segment, the reason is AI is coming into Monitor as Google wants, and it's making mistakes is basically what's happening. So it's gonna chase a lot of good creators away. Fortunately, I don't make any money on this. Is that fortunate? No, it's not. I wish I had made some money on this. However, the point is that it's not changing my financial position. But for a lot of people, it is. And that is really unfortunate. A lot of people that make a living on YouTube are having videos in mass demonetized, and it's making them walk away from the platform, which is too bad because those people, they're making money because people are watching. So you're providing a service. So I'll save my soapbox for that video, but just know that there are more videos coming, and I always do want to hear from you. Do you have a ghost story you want to share? Go through my other videos, see if there's anything that you want to talk about from any of those videos. Check out whatsyourghoststory.com, which is also a place where you could find those trailer reaction videos. And if you're going to leave a negative comment, I'm always all for that. I'm not like pro that, but I'm okay with that. I welcome a discussion. Be productive. in your negative comments, and then we can make better content moving forward, stuff that you won't feel negatively about. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.